DeLuca here. All right, today I am doing a straight pour, as you can tell by my sides here. My screen looks very funny. I look extremely tan. I don't know why it's rating it that way. It must be confused by this color or something. The colors we're using today, I'm going for kind of, can't really say a neutral palette because these are some flashy colors, but I think the overall look of it will have a neutral appearance. The colors I have are Liquitex Basics Unbleached Titanium, Decoart, Americana Decor. I have the matte metallics in aged bronze, and the regular metallics in Copper and Garnet. These paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. And the consistency that we're working with is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears quickly. The stream comes off pretty thin. I kind of get it to thinner than a regular pencil lead, but thicker than a mechanical pencil lead for dew. So 1 part paint, 2 parts Floetrol, and then thinned with my concoction of 90% water to 10% Floetrol until I get that consistency. Some paints might not need any of that, but some other paints might just be a thicker batch, or maybe it's a little bit older, so it's a little bit thicker, and then you might need to thin it a bit more. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards. Each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube. That's the picture of that particular video and technique. This box here has a tip for that particular technique. Down here is the color palette for that particular painting. And then these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette. You can just use those 2 colors, or you can build off of them. And then there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each color palette card has 5 color palettes. Use all of the colors, just use some of the colors, mix and match the bonus color palettes with the techniques, and you have thousands upon thousands of combinations, more than you could ever get through in a lifetime. And these are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also now available at amazon.com. The first thing I'm going to do is put down my base coat. Normally I would put a little bit of paint into my cup first, but I have some here in reserve for just that purpose. This is an 18 by 24 canvas. This is an Arteza canvas, actually. I like these Arteza canvases. They are a nicer quality than the Michaels, you know, their value packs, or what have you. And I would even compare them to their level 1s. I would say level 2, but it's not gallery wrapped. It is back stapled. But the diameter, or the thickness of the sides is thicker than the typical thin canvas, or the Michaels canvases. The reason I lay down a base coat is to help my composition slide around on my canvas with most ease and the least amount of disruption to my poured composition. because we all know, I mean, how many paintings have you done where as soon as it comes out of the cup, you wish you could just keep it just like that. You don't even want to tilt it. So if you want to preserve as much of that as you can, use a base coat. Your base coat should be mixed the same as your paints with the same pouring medium. And consistency wise, it should either be the same or a tiny bit thinner, but never thicker. Because if your base coat is thicker than your poured paint, it will fight you as you are tilting. And that's when it won't stretch evenly, and you'll have like dips in your pour puddle. I am gonna pop these bubbles in my base coat. The reason you want to do that is because you don't want them popping up in your pour later on. And even when you torch, this can still happen, which is why I use a base coat that is a color that is in my pour, so that I don't have some strange color popping up, like if I used white and there's no white in my painting, and then you're like, why is there white popping up? Just cornering a bit of glove here. Okay, let's put some paint in a cup. I am using a smaller cup than I normally would for something this size, but there's something going on with my other cup where the handle is dripping water, and so we can't have that. It's not good for your painting. So I'm going to use this smaller cup, and I'm going to pour a little bit of a puddle on my canvas and hope that that gives me enough stretch. So I'm starting with my base color. So what is on the canvas, I call the base coat, and what is in this cup, the first color I put in, I call the background, because that falls to the background. The cell makers pop up through it, and then it winds up being like the lacing in between. All right, and then the aged bronze I will be putting in first. Pouring from up high, trying to get it to sink as much as possible. Sinking leads to cells, y'all. If it's something that wants to sit on top and you force it to sink, it wants to come back to the top, right? And now the copper. Again, from up high. And you can see it's coming to the top, but I have a bit left over on reserve to cover the top. And now for the garnet. So I will pour some of this on top, just enough to cover it. And what is left in this cup, I'm just going to pour in a puddle in the center. And here we go. I'm going to start straight. Letting those paints churn. This is what gives me those Boulder cells a lot of times. I'm going to get a little closer now. Tighten up my rings a bit, Switch back and forth between straight and rings just to create a little bit of something different going on there. Break up the patterns. My Fibonacci. Changing direction on that. A lot harder to do that left-handed. Ooh-wee. Okay. I'm semi-ambidextrous. All right. I'm already liking what's happening here. I see some cool things popping up. I know a lot of that garnet is on the edge, but I have plenty of it here. It blended nicely. Let's pop some of these bubbles. Might as well give the rest of the base coat a bit of a torch. Sometimes those bubbles lurk underneath and start making their way to the top a little after they sit. Can't tell if that is schmutz or a bubble. What is that? On today's episode, is that schmutz or a bubble? I think it's a bubble. I will know better when I start tilting, I guess. So as I let this sit, more of these cells are popping up. And as they pop up, these are the ones that will turn into Boulder cells because they're already cells. So what I'm going to do is stretch them out. The ones that pop up after, I call them pop-up cells. Some people call them pearl cells. But those are the ones that show up after you've stretched your canvas a lot. And so you'll notice that if one side gets stretched more than other, you might wind up with some of these smaller cells. And if you don't want those cells, they can be quite the bummer. But the reason that's happening is because you're stretching that top layer of paint, and that's what's allowing those cells to pop up. But these paints, because these paints that I call cell makers, the Decoart paints, look at that cup. How beautiful that is. Can you see that? Lovely. The cell makers are more matte than my background color. In this case, the same paint as the base coat. So if you have a glossy paint with matte paints, the matte paints are going to be more likely to sell if you have the right consistency. If it's too thick, it won't really do it. You won't get the Boulder cells. But if you get just that right consistency, magic happens. And this whole thing will be loaded with cells, and you'll probably barely see any of the parchment because there's still cells popping up in there. Okay. I think this one is ready for a stretch. Very slowly. If you go too fast, the paint will roll over top of itself. And then you start losing your cells and your composition. But if you're patient and allow it to go slowly, when I catch that corner and I bring it back, catch it and stretch it, as I say, you will actually be able to keep some of those cells. I did not have that properly balanced in my fingers. I'm barely touching this canvas. I have it balanced on my fingers, so I don't even usually tape the back of my canvases because I only touch it in one spot. And so there's hardly anything on the back to worry about to clean up. What direction? I think this one is the one setting up. And so what I do, I watch where the weight of the paint is. You always want to bring the weight of the paint back to center before you change directions. That will really help you to maintain your composition. My Fibonacci is going to be very stretched on this one. I'm okay with that. I ain't mad. And again, back to center. And you'll see this side will start stretching out and very cool things will happen. Oh, it was schmutz. It was schmutz, and I took my eye off the ball. Woe is me. That just made some ugly things happen over here. Where are you? What are you and where are you? I think it was just like a piece of thick paint. I'm not grabbing any chunks. Well, I guess we'll see. I guess I should have said I don't take my hands off my canvases unless I find schmutz. It is still not moving easily there. What is it? What is happening there? Well, I may have to tilt that off if it keeps bothering me. very slowly. But if you tilt too fast, you will lose your Boulder cells. They will just kind of explode and you won't get that cool 3D look. I think this might be the most cornery of a corner I've ever tilted. That spot is bugging me. I have to. I mean, now I'm just gonna pray that I have enough paint to finish covering this canvas. Okay, and again, bringing the weight of the paint back to center. The weight of your paint is where it's moving the quickest. You'll really be able to control your tilting if you know where the weight of your paint is. Okay, bringing it back, bringing it back. So now I'm just bringing the weight of the paint back to the center, stretching out this corner that I just tilted. Whew, okay, that was a workout. Holy moly. These canvases, they have some heft to them. All right, well, as predicted, it is both neutral and flashy. Nifty. All right, so I'm going to let this sit and then I will bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. I think this piece is beautiful. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I love how it just looks like that background color is glowing underneath it's kind of lava-ish. It just looks like that's the whitest hot part. But some cool cells, got some pop-up cells in there. Some lovely Boulder action. A few pop-up cells in that area that I stretched and stretched and stretched. Like I said, the more you stretch it, the more likely you are to get those pop-up cells. Interesting how those colors blended. How it almost looks like gold, but there's no gold in this painting. but there it is. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you did, please do click the like button and subscribe if you have not already. And share if you feel so inclined. That helps us stay afloat in the algorithms here on the YouTube, which are brutal and ever-changing. The moving goalpost, that is the YouTube algorithm. Check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. All of my affiliate links, Blick and Amazon and Arteza, where I acquired this canvas. If you enter through those links, I will receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. Anything that you purchase on those websites. Also in the description box is the link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. They are also, the inspiration cards are also available at Amazon. And last but not least, our Facebook group. Find the link in the description box. Join us there. Post your masterpieces, ask your questions, get some inspiration. That is going to be it for me for today. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.